people of Earth. Now, rarely does a game actually surprise me. First impressions are usually a decent indication of how good or bad a game's going to be. However, every once in a while there's a game that is just so inconsistent it's impossible to judge on first impressions alone. Greg Hastings' Tournament Paintball Maxed for the Game Boy Advance just so happens to be one of those games. So is it good? Bad? Just mediocre? Well, we're about to find out. First, I'd like to point out that this game's title is 9 syllables long. 9 syllables! On top of that, this also has a pretty boring looking cartridge. As soon as you turn the game on, you'll be greeted with some of the worst audio compression I've ever heard. It took me a few minutes just to figure out what the lyrics were. I'm sure you're dying to know just what these lyrics were, and it's play at your own risk. I couldn't think of a more fitting line if I tried. With that out of the way, I should probably move on to actually analyzing the game. Let's start with the graphics. They're actually surprisingly good for a 3D GBA game. Some 3D objects convert to sprites as you get far away from them, but most of the time it's pretty hard to notice. The textures, sprites, and art all look pretty decent for a 3D GBA game. So this game must be pretty good, huh? Well, not quite. You see, there's just a little problem. Performance. This game runs horribly, and before you blame it on the fact that it's a GBA game, there are plenty of GBA first-person shooters that run just fine. Some of which look as good, if not better, while still running better, so there's really no excuse for how poorly this runs. I'd give the graphics a 7 out of 10, they're pretty good, but the performance, I'll give a 3 out of 10. It's pretty disappointing. It's just barely playable at around 10 to 15 FPS. So we're 2 points in and already things aren't looking good. It's about to get worse. Now we're on to music. This game only has 3 tracks, and they're all terrible. First, there's the horribly compressed play at your own risk rap that plays at the intro and the credits. Then there's some awful metallic ringing sound that plays on the menus that I guess is supposed to be music. And in-game there's some generic guitar riff. So that's a track for the intro and credits, menu, and gameplay. 3 tracks, and they all sound like garbage. Honestly, I can't think of anything positive about this music. It's all short, repetitive, sounds terrible, and is very annoying. I give the music 1 out of 10, and that 1 is basically just a participation trophy, just because it has music. That music isn't any good at all. And I'm afraid things only get a little bit better with the levels. They're pretty bland and repetitive. The levels all look very similar. It's just a small arena with some obstacles sprinkled in the middle. I realize this is trying to imitate Tournament Paintball, but it's still pretty boring with these small levels. I give the levels a 4 out of 10. Now for the controls, and honestly, I can't even remember them. They were pretty terrible and awkward to use and really slow and sluggish and just not at all what you would expect. So I'm giving the controls a 4 out of 10. So at this point you might be wondering what I was talking about with the inconsistency. So far it seems consistently bad. Well, now we're on to the gameplay, and that's where things really start to come together. This game only has one game mode from the console counterparts, and it's Elimination. On top of that, you don't even have a team. You're against a team by yourself. Now, already that's not sounding very great, but it's actually pretty fun, and there's a built-in dodge mechanic so you can deflect paintballs without them breaking. The AI isn't very smart. It pretty much just hides behind cover and takes pot shots at you whenever it feels like. But you still get that adrenaline-filled feeling of moving from cover to cover trying to get a good shot at your enemy without them hitting you. Despite its simplicity, it's actually pretty fun and adrenaline-filled. I'd give the gameplay a 7 out of 10, it's actually pretty good. So now it's for the verdict, and I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. The biggest fault of this game is the frame rate's terrible, and I can completely understand if you don't want to play it because of that. But underneath all of its technical limitations, there is actually a decent game in there. The fact that this game is still fun with all these technical limitations really makes you wonder how much better it could have been if it had better controls and performance. I'd recommend this game just because it's cheap and relatively enjoyable. However, there are definitely way better games out there for the same price, so definitely do consider that if you're interested in this game. So that's it for this review. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Now that you've made it to the end of the video, don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and it would be helpful if you shared it with a friend. If you didn't like the video, it would be helpful if you left some feedback for any ways that I can improve my content. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.